Most of what we hear in the news is that y'all are working diligently on our domestic spending and the things there, but are y'all also looking at the bucks we spend around the world and cutting back on that some and not just all in domestic spending?
Absolutely. Some of the amendments that were offered, and the amendment process on this continuing resolution that I referred to, it was what we call an open rule. As far as I can tell, nobody could ever remember having an open rule process. What that means is on a budget, on a budget proposal, and what that means is that people were able to offer as many amendments as they wanted. I mean, the Democrats were allowed to offer as many amendments as they wanted, and so were the Republicans, which is different than certainly the way it was done the last 4 years, where nothing came through with an open rule. Nobody could amend it. It was up or down, and they had the majority, and so they were going to run it through. I say that just to say this: the large majority of the amendments that you saw were amendments that were designed to reduce spending. And the area of foreign spending, foreign aid for countries that have absolutely no interest in supporting anything, those things were amended, and we take a huge chunk out of that in the CR. And I think that you'll continue to see. I'm not sure that we should eliminate all of it. There may be, in the instance of Israel, for instance, that where we have a strategic long-term ally in the Middle East, I'm not sure that we want to be cutting their funding to zero. But by the same token, every program has got to be evaluated on its merits, and we have got to. And I think there's a tremendous amount of waste and spending in that part.
Robert, does the former Senator Alan Simpson's commission that issued its report in December, does that provide much of a map or help going forward, or is that just going to sort of be forgotten about? I don't detect that it's being forgotten about fully, but it's hard to read that.
Yeah, I think long-term tax reform, I think so much of, they took, the question was on this bipartisan commission that the president commissioned and came back with a report. So much of what they proposed really, I think, can be characterized as long-term tax reform. Yeah. I think that that's probably not going to be the first item that's going to be dealt with. I think the first item is going to be continuing resolution. We got to deal with the debt ceiling question. We have to deal with the 2012 budget. And so I think that I do believe our leadership under this new speaker is committed to long-term tax reform, and I think it will. I think it will have to be a part of that. I don't think that there's any less enthusiasm for that subject. I just think that there are priorities that we have to deal with immediately. But I think that will be something we'll deal with in this 112th Congress. But the other thing that I think is important about tax reform, and I've said this a lot, is that something that big, where the reason it doesn't ever get done is because everybody's got something to lose in it. Right. That's got to come from the executive. That's got to be a top priority for an executive, the President of the United States, to risk his capital and to be willing to twist arms to put something together that actually makes sense. And so I think that it's very rare you ever see that kind of huge overarching effort from within the legislature, just because that's not the nature of the legislature.
Thank you.
Be my guess. Yes, sir.
Robert, Michael,
Yep. The price of domestic oil is $84 a barrel, and the price of the foreign oil is up to $115 a barrel. Are y'all going to address the energy solutions?
I think so. I certainly aim to. I was very disappointed, though, that the White House has taken the position that it has. That is, it's just to cut off all discussion about drilling off the coast of the Atlantic, drilling in the Gulf Coast, drilling up in Alaska. The president's just taken that off the table. And I think that one of the most important things for individuals, but more important, the most important thing for businesses to succeed, and we hear this all the time, is affordable energy. Everybody knows that. So it seems inconceivable to me that the president would take that position. I think that there will be opportunity for him to take up measures that will increase our capacity at the same time as to make it easier for those who are exploring new and sustainable energy sources or alternative energy sources to invest. But I think that at the end of the day, it is going to rest with him, because any bill that we pass and that the Senate passes, he's got to sign off on it. So, in order for it to become law. So, that, I think, is going to ultimately be a stumbling block unless he changes his view. And I can tell you, if gas gets up to $4, $5, $6 a gallon, I suspect he'll change his view. Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, Robert, I know you don't know everyone in the House, because you've only been there for 45 days, but the one thing I was hoping to get from you was, is there a sense, is there the courage, or is there the guts in the House and the Senate to tackle that third rail, the entitlement issue?
I think there is, because I think everybody recognizes, and that was a point of one of the figures that I gave you, is that, you know, if you want to balance the budget, you could fire the entire federal workforce and you'd still be $50 billion short. Stop and think about that for a second. Fire the entire federal workforce and still be $50 billion short. That shows you where the real challenge is going to be, and it is going to be in Social Security. It's going to be in Medicare and Medicaid. I mean, that's where we're going to have to make reforms. I think there are reforms that must be made and that can be made, and I think that there is the political will to do it. And the reason I say that is a couple of things. I do think that elections mean something, and I think elections, in this last election, whether your man won or not, I think everybody would agree that there was a strong feeling of dissatisfaction with the amount of spending and debt that is being incurred in this country. And I think that the people that the new members, I think, are willing, the ones that I've met are willing to make those tough choices. And I think if you look at the CR process, this continuing resolution process that I was talking about earlier, I mean, I think you'll see some folks, you know, myself included, you know, we took some positions that, you know, people don't like having to take those positions, but we recognize that if we don't do something now, we're on a collision course that's from which we may not recover. And so I think that there is that will. We've got 2 years.
What's your opinion on what's going on in Madison, Wisconsin?
Well, yeah, I think it's symptomatic of what every state is dealing with, and you know, I certainly respect I certainly respect very much those who, you know, unionize. You know, I will say, I think it's no secret, I'm a big fan of the fact that in Virginia we're a right-to-work state. I think it's good for business. I think one of the downsides is if Ohio and Wisconsin were to adopt a right-to-work status, suddenly it'd make it harder for us to compete for jobs. But with that said, I respect the rights of those who unionize to do so, and I think that certainly, especially historically, there are examples of where that's probably benefited all of us. But with that said, the state has to balance its budget. You know, Wisconsin's got to balance their budget, and they know what it's costing them, and they're able to identify it. And if folks are going to have if they have to balance the budget, everybody's going to have to share in the pain a little bit. And that, I think, is where you're seeing this unrest. And I hate to see it for the state. I know if I was there, I'd be very embarrassed. But I think we're probably going to see more of that across the country as these states have to grapple with cutting spending and getting to, as Michael said, getting to the core.
Robert, all these federal regulations, I know the state is dealing with this right now. McDonald has said that with the federal regulations, they're having a hard time with their budget. And it also passes on to the local government. It's really hitting us hard. And I know you guys have a hard, difficult time. But it's not only in Washington, it's in the state and it's in local government. We have got to buckle down. And everybody looks on the federal level, but it's state and local too. And if the federal, they're gonna set the tone. If they can reduce some of these mandates and lift some of them, that will ease the burden on the state, therefore it'll trickle back to the localities. And it's a win-win situation for everybody.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think, you know, there's no question in my mind that every regulation that's adopted, or most every regulation that's adopted, is done so in good faith because they believe that it's going to be good for somebody. And I don't think anybody would dispute that. And I certainly wouldn't dispute it. But what happens is when you have regulation, little regulation, little regulation, little regulation, little tax, little tax, little tax, at some point, the tax and the regulated just can't bear it anymore. And I think that's where we've gotten, not just with individuals and businesses, but obviously local governments. I mean, I think the No Child Left Behind bill, that was a Republican idea. In my opinion, it was a terrible idea. And what it's done is it's just put a tremendous burden on the state and the localities. And I think that that's something that I'd like to see us address that in this Congress, is how to increase flexibility for localities and states so that you can serve your constituents just like we should be serving ours. Well, there's one more back in the back there.
Just wanted to, when we hear on the news about Bedford possibly closing schools, and this morning we hear about Detroit and class sizes of 60 children, would like to hear your thoughts on education reform.
Well, I think that certainly the No Child Left Behind law is one that I think we need to look at if we're serious about giving localities and states flexibility and not regulating them to death. But I will say this: I do think that if you look at, I don't think you're going to see those stories in Virginia, and the reason is because Virginia has been doing its level best to balance its budgets over the years and has made adjustments accordingly. And that's reflected, I think, in the overall health of our education system. Now, there will necessarily be some hard decisions that have to be made, but that I don't think will be nearly as draconian as you will see in places like in Detroit, Michigan, and California, and Florida, where they have not been taking care of their business. I think the way Virginia has, but I think it's a symptom. It's again a symptom of decision making that has not, I think, fully appreciated the consequences, and at some point we have to modify if we are going to, I think, see better days. That's my take on it. And I think, let me just say this also. I think that state and localities are far better situated to address educational needs. I mean, I think the idea that federal bureaucrats in Washington know anything or know better about how to educate children in Danville or Pittsylvania or Martinsville or Halifax is preposterous. And so I think that I would like to see us operate under that philosophy more than we do. Thank you.